What's the best part about playing Dungeons & Dragons? Throughout the years of playing the game, I've heard many opinions on this question. Some say the combat, some say the role-playing aspect, and a few tell me how perfectly they built their characters to the point where they literally become demigods. But in my opinion, the best part about playing any tabletop RPG is the stories you make with your fellow adventuring companions. The memories of your favorite moments of a campaign could be the reason why you're still playing today, and the things you've learned through crazy scenarios help you just become a better player. With all that being said, my name is Skipflack, thanks for checking out Crithalla, and welcome to the very first episode of the Fables of Faerûn. Here I'll be telling tales from previous campaigns I've been a part of, as well as other stories I've heard from friends, the internet, and viewers like you. As for my first story, well, I can't think of a better tale than my oldest memory of the first session of a 5th edition campaign I took part in. Without further ado, let's settle in with a tall mug of ale and listen to the story of Old Skipflack's sheep trauma. For our own personal reasons, an elf druid, an elf sorcerer, and myself, the drunken dwarf barbarian, were all sitting at the Blue Boar Inn, right in the center of Phandalin, which is right here on the Sword Coast map, for those of you who don't know. The elves both stood in the back of the bar, listening in as I drank my fill of ale and chatted with the fantastic bartender known as Big Al. While conversing with Big Al, he complimented me on how strong and mighty I looked, and said he might have a job for me if I was interested. He told me about the local farmer who was in grave danger. Apparently, a swarm of goblins invaded the farmlands and have been terrorizing the farmer for days, and is looking for some help with the problem, along with a handsome gold reward to boot. The elves' ears perked up as they walked over to the bar to listen in a bit more. Being quite the extrovert and way too friendly, I introduced myself to them. The elf druid introduced herself as Pandora, and, after a bit of prying, the elf sorcerer introduced herself as Riku. I mentioned to them that they seemed very interested in this job Big Al and I were discussing. They agreed, and after discussing for a while, we made plans to team up to beat those nasty goblins and split the gold. We headed to the Tri-Boar Trail and traveled about a mile north of Phandalin. As we approached the farm, we immediately saw the problem. The goblins destroyed the farmlands and were raiding everything in sight. Being the type of dwarf that is always ready to lend a hand, and to my new friend's dismay, I charged right into battle. After a long and gruesome fight, the three of us successfully reclaimed the farmlands. The farmer came running out of the barn that he was trapped in and thanked us profusely. He gave us our reward and followed us back to Phandalin for a celebration. By the time we reached the Blue Boar Inn once again, it was late into the evening. We walked into quite the party already, with a few drunken fools already running around the tavern. The three of us and the farmer all took seats at the bar, ordered some drinks, and purchased a night's stay in the inn above the bar. As time went by, I noticed that Big Al liked to throw a couple of mugs back while working behind the bar, and handled his ale very well. Being the proud drinker that I am, I smirked at him and said, "Wow, you're quite good at drinking, my friend, but not as good as me." Al said, "Well, wanna put a bet on it?" "Well, I'm not much of a betting dwarf," I explained, "but this seems like the easiest payout I've ever had. I'm in." The tavern erupted with excitement. Big Al and I agreed to go drink for drink, and whoever passed out first would lose, making the last man standing the ultimate winner. Everyone in the bar started placing bets on us, to the point where the betting pot got quite big. Pandora placed her bets on me, which was the start of a beautiful friendship. Riku, who couldn't be bothered by the shenanigans taking place, chose to retire to her room for the evening. We started the event, with much fanfare from the crowd. Through the inspiration of everybody watching, and the really good D20 rolls that we were both having, we got through our first 10 drinks. At this point, we were both blubbering idiots. "Are you ready to give up, brother?" Al attempted to say. "Ah, it looks like you're giving up on me, friend," I screamed. "You underestimate the power of a bartender." "Another round!" Al exclaimed. After another 2 drinks and 2 really bad rolls, out of nowhere, everything went black. Suddenly, the morning sun began to rise upon Phandalin. Riku gracefully got out of her less than comfortable bed and headed downstairs to see what type of morning grub was being served at the bar. Pandora jumped out of her slumber and realized that she was somewhere out in the woods, in the middle of a grove. And as for myself, well, suddenly I awoke to the feeling that I was unable to catch my breath. Something large, heavy, and fluffy was on my face, and I couldn't breathe. After struggling for what seemed like forever, I finally pushed the lump off of me and surveyed the situation. It looked as though I was in the sky somehow, with clouds all around me moving around slowly. But as my eyes adjusted, I realized that I was only down to my skivvies, and what I thought were fluffy clouds were not clouds at all, but about 40 large sheep. Terrified at the thought of what happened last night, I looked around to find that I was in a large room filled with hay, empty ale tankards, and tons of food all around the floor. I looked to the corner to find Big Al, dressed in full pirate attire, sleeping next to quite a few sailors. He slowly opened his eyes, and the horror that must have filled my face just moments ago also filled his. We looked at each other with the feeling that something extremely regrettable happened just a few hours ago. Instead of trying to figure out what memories each one of us had, we both just slightly nodded at each other, collected our things, and left the shameful dungeon of fluff. From that day forward, Big Al and I have never so much as hinted about what happened to anybody. Since that day, I have completed many glorious adventures and have become quite a champion. But whenever I hear those dreaded noises of those shaggy beasts, I'm immediately tormented by the thought of what could have possibly happened in that back room of the Blue Boar Inn. Thanks so much for checking out the very first episode of Fables of Faerûn. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you like D&D content such as reviews, top 10s, and story videos, consider subscribing to Crithalla. Remember to like, comment, and share the video, and hit that bell to get notifications on my next video. Again, my name is Skiflack, thanks for checking out Crithalla, and try not to count sheeps to get to bed tonight. I would appreciate it.